All right. Well, good afternoon. My name is Michael Dowry, and I have the pleasure and honor of serving as receiver for the City of Chester. We are gathered here today for the Municipal Financial Recovery Advisory Committee meeting, MFRAC for short. So before we move any further, we'll introduce the committee members. First joined on behalf of the City of Chester by Mayor Stefan Roots. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, everybody, and those of you viewing.
And on behalf of the Governor's Office and the Department of Community and Economic Development, we are joined by Deputy Director, Mr. Andrew Sheaf. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And on behalf of Delaware County Council, we are joined today by Ms. Kelly Diaz. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I feel like we got to do something to beef up your titles. Figure that out. All right. It's still early. We're expecting Councilman Davis to join us on behalf of the City of Chester. I have not received communication otherwise. And as always, I'm joined on these presentations by the Chief of Staff to this engagement, Mr. Vijay Kapoor.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. And Executive Assistant off camera, but always on time, Mr. Cody Dill. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you.
So without further ado, we'll jump into today's agenda. Everyone should have received a summary of our last meeting. No need to formally approve those. This isn't a formal public meeting, but if there are any questions or concerns about the last meeting we just held. Hearing none, we'll continue to move forward. We did add a presentation to today's agenda. Mr. Kapoor, would you like to wrap up your regular updates in with the presentation, or did you have some other points to hit separately?
No, I think we can go through in the presentation, sir.
Okay. And I'll reserve a couple comments for after the presentation. So without further ado, we'll just jump right in. Mr. Kapoor, would you like to take us into today's presentation?
Sure, happy to do so. I'm just sharing my screen. Could I just have folks let me know whether they can see it?
Yes.
Okay.
Great, thank you. Well, good afternoon to the members of the committee and the members of the public who may be watching today or in the future. As the receiver noted, we have a kind of a presentation today that we wanted to go through to talk a little bit about a motion that was filed in bankruptcy court at the end of last week on behalf of the city by the receiver regarding information that the city, via the receiver, is seeking from the Stormwater Authority of the City of Chester. There's been a little bit of news coverage on this, and we wanted to explain to the public and to the committee, obviously, what's going on here, what happened, and kind of why it was done. So without further ado, on May 9th of last week, so May 9th, the receiver filed a motion in federal bankruptcy court seeking information from the Stormwater Authority for the City of Chester. This motion is referred to in bankruptcy speak as a 2004 motion under Rule 2004, and it's seeking information. That's the point of this this motion. We'll talk a little bit today about why this was filed and what the motion is seeking to accomplish, as well as providing some additional information regarding some issues that we're seeing with the Stormwater Authority that prompted the motion, as well as the powers of the receiver as they relate to the Stormwater Authority. So just a little bit about the Stormwater Authority of the City of Chester for folks who don't really know that much about it. And we're using the abbreviations SAC throughout this presentation to refer to the Stormwater Authority. This was incorporated by, the Stormwater Authority was incorporated by City Council in November of 2016 as a municipal authority with a board of 5 members. Board members are appointed by Chester City Council. And municipalities across the state have the ability to create municipal authorities. And those municipal authorities, including the Stormwater Authority, are subject to the Municipal Authorities Act, or the MAA. And this is a law that's throughout the Commonwealth and gives municipalities the ability to create certain types of authority and also prescribes rules and regulations for those authorities and those boards. Now, as part and parcel of being a municipal authority under the Municipal Authorities Act, the MAA specifically provides that the city, which was the incorporating municipality of the SAC, has the unilateral right to reacquire all the assets of the Stormwater Authority. And we'll talk in a moment about why that's important and why that factored into the decision to file the motion. So to talk a little bit about what information the receiver is seeking from SAC, I think the fair way of characterizing this is both financial information, operational information, and governance information. And so in terms of the actual documents that were enumerated specifically in the 2004 motion that was filed last week, the receiver was looking for the March 2024 and April 2024 bank statements, any budget to actual report for the Stormwater Authority for 2023 and 2024, the annual budget for the fiscal year ending December 2024. So basically the budget for this year, any cash flow projections for this fiscal year, copies of all the agreements with Penvest, which is a financing arm of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, information regarding the purchase of Stormwater Authority buildings. Stormwater Authority has made some purchases of buildings within the city that we're trying to get additional information on. 2025 to 2029 rate projections. We'll talk about these a little bit later. These are basically the projections that the Stormwater Authority would have going forward based on its finances and based on its expected capital and operational needs. Long-term control plan and current status of each project identified in it. What we're really looking for here is, effectively the stormwater management plan of the Stormwater Authority, and the sense and the status of each project that is working towards fulfilling that plan. Copies of all agreements with Corvius, whether or not they have been terminated or have expired, and copies of documents and information relevant to loans to SAC from the Stormwater Authority's executive manager and his church. The purpose of why the receiver is seeking this information is really there's multiple reasons, and they all kind of go towards at least the same, I think, the same point, which is ensuring that the Stormwater Authority is being operated, is financially sound, and is being operated in an appropriate way. As part of the bankruptcy, you all have heard us say multiple occasions, the receiver needs to propose what's referred to as a plan of adjustment to the bankruptcy court that can be confirmable. And to that end, that's not an easy thing to do. And the receiver is considering and evaluating all city assets and property interests. You've heard us talk about that, generally monetization, and we've talked about other work that's being done over here. But the Stormwater Authority is a city asset, and the receiver has obviously an interest in making sure that it's financially and operationally sound. You clearly do not want an asset of a city that's not financially sound or is not operationally sound. A second reason for why the receiver is seeking this information is, as many of you know, and those of you who are Chester ratepayers and residents know, Chester taxpayers are already very heavily taxed. And the Stormwater Authority's stormwater rates are among the highest in the Commonwealth and possibly even in the country. Based on the information we have, based on the minutes that we've reviewed, it's unclear whether the Stormwater Authority took into account the proper guidelines under the MAA when it raised rates back in October, effective in October of 2023. So the MAA has guidelines that authorities need to look at when they increase rates. And again, it's unclear whether the Stormwater Authority followed those guidelines when it raised rates effective October 21st of 2023. And then finally, and we'll get into these in a little bit, there's several events over the last year have raised concerns about SAC's financial condition and governance. And so to get into those and talk about, what are those events, On October 10th of 2023, we reviewed minutes from the October 10th of 2020, the October 10th, 2023 meeting of the Stormwater Authority. And those minutes reported that there were loans totaling $40,000 from the executive manager and his church to make Stormwater Authority payroll. That's obviously, a pretty extraordinary action to take, sort of be the equivalent of the receiver or the mayor loaning money to the city in order to make payroll. And so that obviously raises some flags in terms of the financial condition of the Stormwater Authority. It also may potentially have violated the the MAA, because the MAA does provide processes and rules and regulations for a authority to incur debt or to borrow money. The second event that raised concerns here was the increase in the stormwater fees, effective October 21st in 2023. SAC has raised stormwater fees to an amount that's nearly double the rate that it initially charged in 2017 when it first started charging residents. That has resulted in Chester ratepayers paying among the highest stormwater rates in Pennsylvania and possibly in the country. And as we noted earlier, it's also unclear whether the Stormwater Authority took into account the proper guidelines under the MAA when it raised rates. So both of those things are important to us here to again, to understand the financial condition. And I think, the first bullet kind of speaks for itself. And the second here, again, is kind of a focus on rates. And as many of you who may be watching know, who live in Chester, whether it's a fee from the Stormwater Authority or a fee for rubbish pickup or a tax from the city, property tax or an earned income tax, it's all coming out of the wallets of ratepayers and of residents. And we have a sensitivity to that. We understand and want to minimize to the extent we can impacts on residents. Because from a resident's perspective or a ratepayer's perspective, it really doesn't matter to them where that dollar is going. It's still a dollar that's coming out of their pocket. And, that again is of concern, I think, to everybody involved, not just the receiver. In addition to the financial concerns that I just spoke about, we also have board governance concerns here. And here it really has to do with kind of issues that we appear to be seeing regarding board members, both in terms of the number of board members that the Stormwater Authority appears to have, and it's unclear at this moment how many and who. But first off, it appears the Stormwater Authority appears to be violating its initial articles of incorporation regarding the number of board members. As I mentioned earlier, the city incorporated the Stormwater Authority back in November of 2016. It had 5 enumerated board members as part of those articles of incorporation, which were filed with the state. The current number of SAC board members appears to be at least 7 and possibly more. So, just first off, we need to have a sense of the board members and compliance with the initial articles of incorporation. As we've been asking the city has looked through at least one time through whether there were any changes to those articles of incorporation that the city made or approved, and we have found nothing to that end. The second issue that has come up and has been discussed, I know, at least at a couple of Chester City Council meetings, is that 2 Chester City Council members sit on the SAC board as compensated board members, which, according to the city solicitor, violates the city charter. And to get into that, the issue here is that under Article 2, Section 202 of the city's charter, it provides that no council member can hold any other compensated position in the city of Chester government. There are 2 current Chester City Council members, Councilwoman Portia West and Councilman Fred Green, who serve on the SAC board and are compensated as a result of that. On February 15th of 2024, the city solicitor advised Mr. Green and Ms. West that their paid board positions on the Stormwater Authority Board and continued service as city council members violated the city charter. On February 21st of 2024, Ms. West did send her resignation to the Stormwater Authority Board chair from the Stormwater Authority. But we later learned that Ms. West has actually continued to serve on the Stormwater Authority. It's unclear whether Mr. Green had submitted a resignation at any point in time, but we understand, again, both of them continue to serve as compensated board members, as well as city council members for the city of Chester, and the city solicitor has been, both in writing as well as verbally, has advised the council members that that's not permissible under the city charter. So in terms of kind of like, what, did we just file the motion and without any kind of warning? That answer is no. We actually tried to work, not only the receiver, but also the mayor tried to work to get this information prior to taking the action of filing the 2004 motion on May 9th. So back on March 12th, Mayor Roots sent a letter to the executive manager of the Stormwater Authority, Dr. Horace Strand, requesting the information. That information was not provided. On April 1st of 2024, the receiver then sends a letter to the Stormwater Authority Board Chairwoman, Ms. Livia Smith, which was following up on Mayor Roots's request for information and asking for the same documentation. He asked for a response by April 8th. Although the receiver did receive a response, it wasn't really the response that we were looking for. The Stormwater Authority's legal counsel responded to the receiver's letter stating, quote, "Absent a proper request made under the Pennsylvania Right to Know law, SAC is under no obligation to provide the material requested." So instead of providing the materials requested, the Stormwater Authority counsel told the receiver that he should file a right to know request. And obviously the information was not provided. So to talk a little bit about the receiver's authority as it relates to city authorities, because I think part of the response by the Stormwater Authority Council was essentially saying that, well, the Stormwater Authority is an independent entity, and so therefore the receiver has no jurisdiction over it. From our perspective, that is completely and flat out wrong. And we believe that the Pennsylvania State Supreme Court decision that was rendered on January 29th of this year supports the position of the receiver. So if you look at Act 47, it repeatedly includes the term authority in its definition of the receiver's powers. And that was recognized in the Pennsylvania Supreme Court case in that opinion. So if you have any chance to read Act 47 like I have, it always refers to a distressed municipality or authority. And you'll see that throughout Act 47. Now the question is, well, what's an authority under Act 47? Thankfully, Act 47 defines an authority. It defines it in the definition section. It defines it as, quote, "A municipal authority, parking authority, or any other authority or corporate entity that is directly or indirectly controlled by a distressed municipality, or to which a distressed municipality has power of appointment. The term shall not include a joint municipal authority." Now, the Stormwater Authority of the City of Chester is a municipal authority. It's not a joint municipal authority. It's only incorporated by the City of Chester. Chester is the only municipality that it serves. And the City Council has power of appointment, which it has exercised over the years. So very clearly, the Stormwater Authority falls within the definition of an authority under Act 47. And as an example of an Act 47 provision that demonstrates the receiver's powers as they relate to authorities, one example is Section 708 of Act 47, which I've reproduced here. That has to do with elected appointed officials and has to do with the receiver being able to issue orders to elected and appointed officials. Again, we've sort of had to go through this with respect to the city itself. And under Section 708, it's very clear. The receiver may issue an order to an elected or appointed official of the distressed municipality or an authority. And again, as we saw from the previous slide, the Stormwater Authority is an authority as defined under Act 47. And that order may be to implement any provision of the recovery plan and to refrain from taking any action that would interfere with the powers granted to the receiver or the goals of the recovery plan. And those of you who have read the January 29th majority opinion by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court know that Justice Wecht indicated the goals of the recovery plan does not necessarily mean that there has to be an enumerated provision in the recovery plan that the receiver is trying to enforce. It was very clear that the receiver has very broad general powers here. Clearly here in a situation where you've got a municipal authority that is taking a loan out from its executive manager and his church, there are serious financial questions that anybody, I think, would understand need to be asked about. And frankly, telling a receiver to go file a right to know request, I think is not really a cooperative way of trying to address some very legitimate concerns that not only the receiver has, but the mayor has, and we know that ratepayers who are paying, again, which may be the highest stormwater rates in the country, have an interest in knowing and making sure that the entity to which they are paying is financially, operationally sound, and is operating under its appropriate articles of incorporation and in the Municipal Authorities Act. So in terms of next steps here, we note that under 2004 motion, which in bankruptcy world is very broad, it's quite broad, even in terms of what federal discovery would permit. In the motion, we note that the information sought is preliminary, and that the receiver reserves the right to seek, and the city reserves the right to seek further discovery as necessary, including the authority to conduct depositions if necessary. And the bankruptcy court has set a hearing on the receiver's motion for Wednesday, June 5th at 12:30 p.m. That will be at the bankruptcy court in the Eastern District in downtown Philadelphia, again on Wednesday, June 5th at 12:30 p.m. So that is the presentation I have here for the committee and the public. I'm happy to answer any questions at this point, or if folks have any comments, please feel free.
Thank you, Mr. Kapoor, for the presentation. That's all nice. Very thorough. So to the committee, opening it up to the committee for any discussion on the recent action taken in bankruptcy court.
I have a few questions,
Ms.
somewhat unrelated to the bankruptcy, but when is there an entity, like a state entity, that oversees these authorities? So if any authority is thought to have violated the MAA, is there any entity kind of like the PUC or something that would kind of step in and investigate, or no?
PJ? Or Ms.
Yeah,
Kapoor?
I actually, Ms. Diaz, that's a great question. I do not know the answer to that question. I don't. We can certainly get that. Get an answer to you on that question.
And then another question I had was, does this entity get, do they undergo an audit every year?
Yes,
Okay.
there should be a financial audit conducted every year. Yes.
Okay. So like theoretically, then most of the documents are like bank statements, they would sort of theoretically be available for the upcoming audit as well, or previous audits. Okay.
I don't think there's anything on the list that we wouldn't consider kind of readily available kind of documents.
And then I guess my last question is, I know that some representatives from this authority were invited to a MFRAC meeting I think it was a few years ago now, where there was discussion about like trash removal, and it was sort of a long meeting about trash removal and sidewalk cleaning and things like that. I'm just curious if there have been, since that meeting, improvements in street sweeping and other areas where this entity would, that they oversee?
I think that's part of the kind of information that we're
Okay.
looking for. Well, an example of it, if you will, but I wouldn't be able to share with you
Right.
an assessment of their operation.
Okay, and then actually just one last thing was, I'm also wondering if there's been an impact on economic development in the city, considering that any business that comes in, I'm assuming they also have to pay this fee, whether it's monthly or quarterly, whether, and maybe in other municipalities, they're not subject to this sort of fee because an authority doesn't exist in that municipality. And if you've heard any feedback or if there have been any issues with trying to foster economic development.
Yes, several different ways we've received that type of feedback. Anything that heightens or increases the barriers to entry and the ability to do business in Chester certainly is a concern. We've also, yeah, so yes, those concerns have been expressed. I don't know that it'd be appropriate to get into specifics here, but yes, we have heard those kind of concerns, received those.
Thank you.
Hi.
Mayor.
Excellent presentation, VJ. For those of you who may wonder, there's no pre-planning on these meetings. I mean, we all just come in these meetings and watch these presentations live. So I will say that the information that you've put together was very succinct, very clearly communicated. I thank you. I think we need to get back to that major point, though, is that as a receiver, you're just trying to get to that plan of adjustment. And what we're trying to do is get the information for you to work your numbers, work your magic, do what you're here to do. I did read some statements that one of the reasons that the information wasn't forthcoming to me when I asked for bank statements and whatnot from the Stormwater Authority was that I was the reason why many ratepayers have chosen not to pay their monthly stormwater fees, whether they be property owners of the residential ilk or commercial. That may stem back to maybe a little over a year ago. Many of the facts that came out today, I had a press conference right there on the property of the Crozer Library, with the backdrop being Memorial Park. But at that time, I do recall in my press release that there were already 1,600 properties that had liens from the Stormwater Authority. So I will say that this is not a new issue. And to Ms. Diaz's point, yeah, there are businesses that are as concerned about these stormwater rates as there are residents. There's a lot of confusion with this authority as to their purpose. I think they've done a less than admirable job on public relations, just really rolling out and explaining, what their purpose is, and that is a big part of the issue with the Stormwater Authority. But as we all are seeking more information, it's just more things are being uncovered. So no one wants to go to court. That is not the way that this should be going. But when the information is not forthcoming, and particularly with receivership, the clock is ticking. They're not going to be here forever. It's just time to take the drastic measures. So I thank the receivers team for trying their best to work with me to get some information as I try to understand how my authorities and the cities in this city is working. Just appreciate the effort, and hopefully we can all come to a way to work. I won't say so much together as to, stormwater is required in a city like Chester because of its location, because of its population. It just doesn't seem to be working well right now. So let's try to figure this all out. We're looking for cooperation from the Stormwater Authority. Hopefully we can get it as we go through this process.
Thank you, Mayor. And um, if it needs to, well, goes without saying, but I've certainly enjoyed working with you for the past 4.5 months, and appreciate not just the level of cooperation, but the level of work, really getting into the trenches and really getting into the weeds of what needs to be done here. So, yeah, I really appreciate your efforts as well. Mr. Sheaf, anything before we move forward? Or Mayor, you were done, I was assuming.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of this stuff sounds really concerning, honestly. Um, Hearing that it's one of the highest rates in possibly the country, and there are challenges making payroll, a couple slides apart. But I mean, I appreciate the mayor's comments, the constructive comments, and the path forward to get the information. I really hope that that can happen expeditiously for the good of all.
Great, agreed. All right, well, thank you again, Mr. Kapoor, for today's presentation. We will continue on with the meeting. I did want to offer a few comments for my updates. We did receive an extension from the federal government for the SAFER grant. The SAFER grant provides for the salaries and benefits of firefighters to help cities, municipalities maintain their current staffing levels. The federal government is currently providing for 8 firefighters for the city of Chester. That grant ended this year. I think it just ended last month, technically, but there was still money available through the grant, and the feds agreed to allow the city to extend it through year end, which basically opened up another $395,000 for the city to use towards firefighter salaries and benefits. So wanted to provide that update there. The next item is a transition, a personnel move that was announced, I believe yesterday or Friday. I don't have the exact time. I think it was the end of last week. There will be a transition at the chief financial officer position. Jim Lathrop has served the city well over the last 10 months and has accomplished several initiatives, raising the city's interest rate of return, completing the 2020 audit, and some other developing the city's, at least in my time here, the first comprehensive budget that really laid out the spending for each department, tying it to line items in the chart of accounts. Great effort and great work over the last 10 months. But we've decided to make a pivot and bring in Richard Troutman. Richard is a Delaware County resident, currently wrapping up his term in Coatesville as their finance director. He is a certified public accountant as well as holding a certification in managerial accounting. We look forward to working with Richard to continue to build out the city's chart of accounts, help to continue to develop the city's accounting system, the Edmonds financial system, and being able to expand some of the reporting from that system and budget to actual tracking. So we're excited for this next phase, but we want to thank Mr. Lathrop for his time and his service. And Mr. Troutman will be starting on Monday, and we're excited to have him joining the team. And then the last piece, just make mention of a partial condition survey that kicked off yesterday. This is the equivalent of the Google Map cars with the cameras on top that ride through the city and map the streets. Well, this is mapping the buildings, completing condition assessments of each parcel in the city, and then we'll be able to generate heat maps, if you will, and better inform some of the targeted investment and redevelopment that needs to happen in years to come. So we're excited that this project is finally kicking off, and this data will be used for a number of different ways as we continue to advance community and economic development initiatives in and around the city. That was it for me for general updates. Does anybody have any questions for me or my office? All right, hearing none, before we conclude, I'll just open it up to the committee. Or is there anyone else that would like to address any topic at large?
Yeah, I'll kick in real quickly. I want to thank DCED who invited me up to Harrisburg to meet many of the state agencies. So let me tell you guys right now, DCED is a ray of sunshine on the city of Chester right now. In cooperation with the governor, who kind of put his edict out there to you guys, and it's to have all the agencies in the state see what they can do for Chester. So that's coming from the governor's end. From our end, right here out of the mayor's office, it is the creative vision for the city of Chester. And where my vision and the state's authorities can meet is what we're attempting to do. So just a couple of weeks ago, I took the ride up to Harrisburg. I sat in the big room, all the agencies either around the table or in little panels on the screen. It was really great to hear the work that they're doing, focused right on the city of Chester. It was also interesting to see how closely aligned the vision I have for Chester matches up with what they're already working on. And I was extra happy to see that when I sent my vision statement up to DCED, some of the things were even incorporated in what I heard. So I think in the next couple of weeks, we're going to make another visit, go with another round of the agencies, see what they're bringing. But I will say to all of you out there who have a vision, particularly those of you in the city of Chester who want to see Chester transform into something different. Too many people come to this town and say it's the city that has time has stopped for the last 30 or 40 or 50 years. Many of us here are very concerned about our day-to-day living, things that we can do, things that we can change. But right now, it's all about a vision for Chester. It's all about the 5-year plan, the 10-year plan. And as Mr. Dowry had just mentioned, we're doing an assessment of all the parcels, which means we're looking at every building on the street. What is its condition? Is it in good shape? Is it vacant? Is it abandoned? Should it be moved? Does that mean when we amass all this information, we're going to be determining what will go in the spots that things need to be removed from right now? So I'm looking forward to that work. That's what we're here for, to move the city forward. And DCED, you have, I can say over-delivered at this point. I'm really excited to work with you guys. Thanks.
The effort in Mr. Sheep is humble and quiet, but he's certainly spearheading the effort, and we're appreciative of all the support DCED is providing to the city of Chester. Thank you. All right, well, if there are no additional comments, we will wrap up for today. We will reconvene May 28th at 1 p.m. Thank you all. Have a good day.